When a man hurts a truly good woman, it's almost never about her. It's not about her flaws, her mistakes, or anything she did wrong. More often, it's about his own inability, his inability to recognize what he had, to accept the depth of love he was being given, or to face the parts of himself he hasn't healed. And in doing so, in causing her pain, he sets off something inside her, something she didn't even know existed. Not rage, not revenge, but awakening. See, a good woman doesn't fall apart when she's wounded. She doesn't break down and disappear into sadness. She doesn't become a storm of drama or chaos. No, what she does is far more powerful. She changes, quietly, deeply, permanently. Change for her doesn't start with shouting or angry texts. It begins in silence, in stillness. It begins in the quiet moments late at night when she's lying awake, staring at the ceiling, asking herself questions she never thought she'd have to ask. Questions like, why wasn't I enough? Why did he treat me this way when all I ever gave was love? Was it me, or was it him? And those thoughts, while painful, don't break her. No, they refine her. Because deep down, she was never built on shallow ground. She loved with honesty. She gave without counting. She showed up, heart wide open, even when it was hard to. She stayed even when he pushed her away. She believed in him when he stopped believing in himself. And that kind of love, that kind of loyalty, it's not weakness. It's strength in its purest form. She loved him in the kind of way that lifts a person, the kind of way that sees through anger, that stays during storms, that holds on to hope. But when that love is mishandled, when it's ignored, or worse, betrayed, it doesn't die, it transforms. And so does she. That transformation starts slowly. She begins to see things she used to ignore. She recalls the moments when she silenced her voice just to avoid a fight. The times she dismissed red flags because she believed in his potential. The way she handed over parts of her soul to someone who didn't even realize the value of what they were being given. And instead of becoming bitter, she becomes wiser. Instead of growing cold, she becomes clear. She doesn't build walls from resentment. She builds boundaries out of self-respect. This is what so many men don't understand when they hurt a good woman. They think she'll stay. They assume her loyalty will keep her close. They believe her kindness will forgive endlessly. But every good woman has her limit. And once she reaches it, once she sees that staying would mean abandoning herself, something clicks inside of her. And there's no going back from that. When a good woman changes, it's not out of vengeance. It's not to make him feel pain. It's because she's finally seeing herself again. She's waking up to her own value. And once she begins to understand what she's truly worth, she stops giving pieces of herself to someone who only ever took. And here's the part that really hits him. She doesn't leave with drama. She leaves with grace. No screaming, no threats, no final arguments. Just quiet resolve. She steps back. Not because she stopped loving, but because she started loving herself more. That's what he doesn't expect. That's what shakes him the most. Not the moment she cries, but the moment she no longer needs him. At first, he might not even notice. He'll think it's just space, that she's just giving him time. He might even believe that when he's ready, when he's finally figured himself out, she'll still be there waiting. But she won't be, because by then, she'll be gone. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, she'll be somewhere else. Entirely on a journey of healing and rediscovery that no longer includes him. And that silence, that calm, it echoes, louder than any argument, more permanent than any goodbye. Because it's not just the absence of her voice, it's the absence of her presence. The absence of her care, her support, her belief in him. That's what he misses first. The way she used to look at him, like he was capable of anything. The way she used to make him feel like home. But now, that love she once poured into him, she pours into herself, into her dreams, into the life she put on hold for someone who never really saw her. She invests in her growth, her peace, her future. She becomes the woman she was always meant to be, the one he kept delaying, dimming, holding back. And while he's still stuck in his confusion, wondering what went wrong, she's rising. Not because she hates him, not because she wants to prove something, but because she knows better now. She knows that love shouldn't hurt this way. It shouldn't feel like begging. It shouldn't mean losing yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. What he thought would break her only woke her up. And that's a kind of power no man can undo. He thought she needed him. But what she needed was to see herself clearly. And now she does. And here's what truly stings. He won't see her fall. He'll see her glow. He won't watch her cry. He'll watch her grow. And in that growth, in that quiet strength, lies a truth he can't run from. He lost her. Not because she stopped caring, but because he never truly did. What men often don't realize, at least not in time, is that a good woman doesn't simply walk away on a whim. She doesn't leave after just one bad day or one mistake. No, she leaves after 100 silent disappointments, after countless moments where she swallowed her pain just to protect a love that felt like it was fading. And when she finally walks away, it's because she's been walking toward herself all along, step by quiet step. You see, good women don't give up easily. They hold on, they try, they believe, they carry the weight of hope even when it begins to crush them. They don't walk away when things get hard. They stay to fix, to mend, to nurture what feels broken. But even the strongest women have a limit. Even the softest hearts grow tired. The world teaches women to be gentle, to forgive, to give second chances, and often they do, all in the name of love. But what the world forgets to teach is that even love has boundaries. Even a heart full of grace must choose itself eventually. Because to constantly give, without being poured into, isn't loving, it's losing. And that's where the quiet realization begins. It starts when she's sitting in the car alone, staring out the window, wondering why she feels lonelier with him than she does by herself. It starts when she's exhausted, not from work or stress, but from the emotional weight of being unseen, unheard. She starts to recognize the imbalance, the way she shows up, fully and consistently while he arrives only when it's convenient. It hits her during the arguments that go in circles, during the apologies that sound too practiced, during the silences that say more than words ever could. It hits her when she starts justifying his actions to her friends, covering for him, defending the things that deep down she knows aren't right. And slowly, it becomes clear. She's been holding together a love that's falling apart. Not because of her, but because he stopped trying. She stops blaming herself. She stops thinking, if I just love him harder, he'll change. She stops thinking her patience is the solution. Because the truth is, it was never her job to fix him. Her role wasn't to carry his broken pieces while sacrificing her wholeness. Love isn't about bleeding for someone else's wounds. It's about healing together, growing together. And when that stops, when the effort disappears, something shifts inside her. And it's quiet. No big announcement. No explosive moment. Just a shift. A subtle change in her energy. She begins to detach. Not out of hate, but out of understanding. She understands that staying any longer might cost her the most valuable thing she has, herself. So she pulls back. She stops over-explaining. She stops begging to be understood. She no longer tries to decode his silences or soothe his moods. She doesn't argue anymore, not because she agrees, but because she's already left the conversation emotionally. The fight is gone. The spark she used to pour into every conflict, every misunderstanding, is now going into her own healing. And he notices. Maybe not right away, but eventually. He feels her shift in her silence. He senses the distance, not in the miles between them, but in the way she no longer reaches for his hand. He sees it in her eyes. They no longer search his for answers, for reassurance. He hears it in her voice, calm, composed, no longer pleading. That voice used to tremble with emotion. Now it's steady. And that steadiness? That's not detachment. That's acceptance. She's accepted the reality for what it is. And that, ironically, is the most painful part for him, because he still expected her to fight for him, to chase him, to stay even when staying meant losing her spirit. But now, instead of pouring herself into a relationship that was draining her, she's pouring herself into the life she put on hold. Her dreams, her peace, her friendships, her passions, her quiet mornings, her sleep-filled nights. She remembers what it feels like to breathe without tension, to wake up without heaviness in her chest. and she begins to smile, not for him but for herself. And the truth sinks in for him, not like lightning, but like a slow storm. A realization that seeps into the cracks of his soul. He thought she would never leave. He assumed she'd always wait, that she needed him more than he needed to change. But now he's facing the silence she left behind. A silence filled with memories, with the weight of everything unsaid, with the echo of her last goodbye. And he starts to remember. He remembers how she held him when no one else did, how she stood by him when he was at his worst, how her love felt like home. He remembers the way she used to light up when she saw him, how she looked at him like he was everything, long before he ever believed he could be. He remembers the sound of her laughter, the way she touched his face, the gentleness in her voice when he was breaking. He remembers her hope, the hope she carried for both of them, even when he gave her nothing in return. And in those quiet moments, something happens. Regret moves in. A deep, gnawing kind of regret, not just for what he did, but for what he didn't do. For all the times he didn't say thank you. For the times he chose silence over vulnerability, pride over connection, distance over effort. And maybe now he's ready to talk, to open up, to be honest. But the sad truth is, it's too late. Because she's no longer waiting on a version of him that never showed up. She's not hoping anymore. She's healing. She's no longer holding on to what could have been. She's creating something new, without him. That's the thing about good women. They don't stay broken. They rebuild. They rise. And when they do, they don't go back to what hurt them. They move forward with quiet strength and unshakable clarity. He might still love her. He might finally understand her value. But that love, it has nowhere to land now. She's gone. And all he has left is the memory of a woman who once believed in him, more than he believed in himself. The moment a good woman finally begins to understand her worth, truly understand it, everything starts to change. And this shift, it doesn't look like a sudden rebellion or a loud declaration. It's more subtle, more sacred. It looks like peace, like space, like distance from the chaos she used to call love. She stops blaming herself. She stops believing that if she were just a little more this or a little less that, he would have loved her better. She stops carrying the weight of his emotional immaturity on her shoulders, because now she sees it clearly. It was never about her not being enough. It was about him not being ready to receive the kind of love she offered. A love that was whole, deep, patient, and honest. A love that wasn't based on games, ego, or control. And the truth is, not everyone is prepared to be seen like that, to be held that deeply, to be loved that fully. Because when someone truly loves you, really sees you, they don't just adore the good parts. They accept the mess too. The fear, the insecurity, the unhealed pieces. And that kind of love, it's terrifying when you haven't done the work to love yourself first. So he ran, or pushed her away, or sabotaged it. Not because her love was flawed, but because it was too real. Too raw, too revealing. But here's where the awakening happens. She stops trying to save him. She stops trying to teach him how to love her. She stops explaining what should have been obvious all along. That consistency matters. That honesty is respect. That love is action, not just words. And in that space where she used to wait for him to show up, she starts showing up for herself. She returns to the things that fill her soul. She reclaims her time, her joy, her creativity. She spends mornings in silence, not in sadness, but in stillness. She starts moving differently, not to impress, but to honor herself. She starts dressing in a way that makes her feel alive again. She starts smiling, not because someone is giving her attention, but because she's finally giving it to herself. Her energy shifts, not to get a reaction, not to prove a point, but because she's finally aligned with what she deserves. She's no longer begging to be chosen, because she's choosing herself now. And that's where her real power lies. She stops needing closure, stops waiting for apologies that never come, stops revisiting the same cycle of hope and disappointment, because she now understands that closure doesn't come from the one who hurt you. It comes from you. From the moment you decide to stop bleeding, for someone who never brought you healing. She understands that love isn't about rescuing someone from their own chaos. It's about building something steady together. Love is mutual. It's rooted in presence, in listening, in growing side by side. She knows now. Love that requires her to shrink isn't love at all, it's bondage. And so she levels up. Not in the flashy, revenge-driven way the world often glorifies, but in a softer, more powerful way. She becomes more grounded, more aware, more intentional. She guards her heart, not with walls, but with wisdom. She no longer lets just anyone have access to her soul. She now knows. Not everyone deserves that kind of closeness. Not everyone earns her trust, and not everyone should. That's the wisdom pain gave her. Not bitterness, but discernment. And here's the hardest part. For the man who took her for granted, that awakening becomes his undoing. Because now he sees her shining in a way he never fueled. Now he sees her smiling in places he's no longer invited to. Now he hears her laughter in the lives of people who value her presence, people who saw what he missed. And that realization, it doesn't scream, it sinks. It sinks in during lonely nights, during quiet drives, during the moments when no one's around and he finally has to sit with the truth. The truth that she loved him when he couldn't even love himself. That she showed up when he disappeared. That she gave endlessly and he gave excuses. And now she's gone. Not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally. She's no longer holding space for someone who never saw her clearly. He starts to realize that the love she gave was transformational. It softened his sharpest edges. It breathed belief into places inside him that he hadn't visited in years. And without it, he feels the void. Because what he lost wasn't just a woman. It was the best version of himself that only existed around her. The man he was becoming because of her presence. Because of her faith in him. That's what stings the most. He doesn't just miss her. He misses who he was with her. And no matter how many distractions he chases, no matter how many surface-level connections he entertains, nothing quite feels the same. Because deep down he knows. He knows she was rare. He knows she was real. And he knows he lost her by his own hand. But by the time he truly understands all of this, she's already moved on. Not to spite him, not to punish him, but because she had to. Because staying any longer would have meant losing the love she finally found within herself. This is what it means to awaken. Not to become harder, but to become smarter. Not to become closed, but to become selective. To still love, just more carefully. To still believe in connection, just not at the expense of your peace. She didn't become cold. She became aware. She didn't stop loving. She just started directing that love to the one person who always needed it most, herself. And in doing so, she didn't lose anything. She rose, she bloomed, she healed. And that version of her, the healed version, the glowing version, the wiser version, that's not his to know anymore. There's something hauntingly powerful about the way a good woman says goodbye. It's not always spoken. Sometimes it's not even heard. But it's felt, in the absence, in the silence, in the space she leaves behind. Because when a good woman walks away, it's not out of hate, or anger, or spite. It's out of clarity, out of self-respect, out of a deep understanding that she cannot keep setting herself on fire to keep someone else warm. And by the time she's gone, it's already been over in her heart for a while. You see, a good woman doesn't just leave when the first crack appears. She's the one who stays to patch the wounds, to glue the pieces, to hold it all together while everything's falling apart. She's the one who believes in potential, in redemption, in growth. She's the one who keeps giving just a little more, even when she's already running on empty. But when that final goodbye comes, it doesn't come with yelling or accusations. It comes with acceptance. She finally understands that love shouldn't be a battlefield, that loyalty shouldn't cost her peace, that choosing him shouldn't mean abandoning herself. And so she chooses differently this time. She chooses to walk away, not because she stopped caring, but because she started caring too much for herself to stay. And what many men fail to grasp is that this goodbye, it's not just a departure. It's a closing of a chapter they never truly appreciated while it was open. It's not just her absence they'll feel. It's the absence of who they were when she was around. Her love didn't just support them, it elevated them. And when it's gone, so is that elevation. He'll notice it in the small things first. The way his phone stays quiet. No more random check-ins. No just thinking about you messages. No soft reminders that he mattered to someone deeply. He'll look for her online, half expecting her to still be there. Still available, still his in some unspoken way. But she won't be. Because she's moved forward. Not just physically, but emotionally. She's made peace with the pain. She's let go of the fantasy. She's no longer trying to understand why he didn't show up. Because she's realized that the why doesn't change the outcome. She gave him chances, time, patience. She offered understanding, forgiveness, love in its most vulnerable form. And in return, she was met with inconsistency, with excuses, with emotional distance disguised as independence. So she stopped chasing what kept running. And now he's the one looking back, trying to trace his steps, wondering where it all fell apart. He'll ask himself if maybe he misjudged her strength, if maybe he underestimated how far he could push without breaking her. But what he won't fully understand, at least not right away, is that she didn't break. She broke free. And that freedom? It feels like peace. It feels like sleeping through the night again. It feels like no longer second-guessing her worth. No longer walking on eggshells around someone who made her question her own voice. He thought she needed closure from him, but she created closure within herself. She stopped waiting for him to say all the things he should have said. She stopped hoping for the moment when he'd finally realize her value, because she now understands. The man who truly sees her never needs to be convinced. He doesn't need reminders. He doesn't need ultimatums. He just shows up, fully, honestly, consistently. And the man who couldn't do that, he doesn't get another chance. Because here's what he never expected. Her strength wasn't in how long she held on. Her strength was in her ability to let go, without looking back. That goodbye he thought would be temporary. It's permanent now. Not out of punishment, but out of growth. Out of wisdom. Out of knowing that love doesn't thrive in confusion. That hearts don't heal in places that hurt them. He'll try to move on. Maybe he already has. Maybe he thinks finding someone new will fix what he lost. But deep down, that ache remains. Because he'll quickly learn that what he had wasn't ordinary. That not every woman is built like her. Not every woman loves like her. He'll discover that attention isn't the same as affection. That physical presence isn't the same as emotional depth. That validation from others will never fill the void of a love that once held him when he was broken. And the saddest part? She's not angry. She's not bitter. She's just done. Done explaining. Done fixing. Done waiting. Her heart is still soft, but now it's protected. Her love is still deep, but now it's earned. She still believes in connection, but not at the cost of her sanity. She still wants a partner, but not one who needs to be begged to care. So when she finally says goodbye, it's not a door left ajar. It's not a test to see if he'll come chasing after her. It's a decision. One made after countless silent nights, tear-stained pillows, and whispered prayers for clarity. And that decision? It changes everything. She reclaims her life, piece by piece, day by day. She relearns who she is when she's not trying to keep someone else whole. She begins to glow again, not from being loved by someone else, but from finally loving herself right. And while he may still be searching, through faces, through memories, through late-night regrets, she's no longer waiting to be found. Because she's not lost. She's free. That's the final goodbye. Not a dramatic exit. Not a war of words. But a quiet, graceful, powerful step in the direction of self-worth. A walk into peace. Into purpose. Into a future where she no longer has to wonder if she's enough. Because now she knows she is. She didn't lose him. He lost her. And that's the kind of loss that doesn't just hurt for a moment. It lingers. It echoes. It stays. Because when a man loses a good woman, he doesn't just lose a relationship. He loses a version of himself he'll never find again. The version she saw. The version she believed in. The version he wasn't ready to become. And by the time he's ready, she's already gone. In the aftermath of her leaving, something quiet yet relentless begins to settle in. Regret. Not loud, not immediate, but slow, steady, and echoing. The kind of regret that creeps in during the still moments. When the noise fades, when the distractions fail, when the truth finally has space to speak, that's when it hits him. She's really gone. And not just her body, not just her voice, but the experience of being loved in a way that saw past his walls. The safety of her spirit, the steadiness of her belief in him, the way she made broken things feel whole just by being present, all of that is gone now. Because you don't just lose a good woman, you lose the world she built around you, the light she brought into your life, the version of yourself that only ever existed because she saw beyond your pain. That's the cost of hurting her. It's not just the end of something, it's the erasure of a future that once had so much potential. He might try to go back to his old life, to old habits, old friends, empty routines. He might seek out validation from places that never required growth. He might even find someone else, someone new, someone easy. But even in those moments, her absence lingers. He'll hear her voice in his mind when he's struggling, reminding him of who he could be. He'll remember how she supported him when he had nothing to offer. He'll feel the weight of the silence she left behind. Because that silence isn't empty. It's filled with everything she once gave without question. And that realization, it doesn't go away. It stays. It shows up when he finally reaches milestones she always believed he'd reach. But she's no longer there to celebrate them. It surfaces during cold nights. During conversations that don't feel deep, during connections that feel shallow by comparison. He starts to understand that she wasn't just someone he dated. She was the turning point, the moment he could have chosen to become more, but didn't. And that's when the truth finally settles in. He didn't just lose her, he lost the man he could have been with her love. Because that's what good women do. They don't just offer comfort, they offer growth. They challenge you, stretch you, support your evolution, but only if you're ready to receive it. Only if you can meet them with the same depth. And if you're not ready, you don't just risk losing them, you risk losing yourself. Now she's moved on. Not bitter, not broken, just wiser. Softer in some ways, tougher in others. She loves differently now. Slower, more cautiously. She listens more and speaks less. She protects herself not because she's cold, but because she's been burned. She learned what happens when you give someone the most tender parts of yourself, and they treat them like they're disposable. She learned that unconditional love can't live where there's conditional effort. That loyalty means nothing when it's not mutual. And because of that, the next person she opens up to will see a woman who has rebuilt herself brick by brick. Not someone who is easy to impress, but someone who requires consistency, presence, and truth. She won't apologize for having high standards, because she earned them through heartbreak. That's the thing no one sees on the surface. What she had to go through to become this version of herself. How many nights she cried. How many days she had to coach herself just to get up and smile again. The strength it took to leave someone she loved, simply because she finally realized love shouldn't hurt this much. And for him, the aftermath is heavy. Not because she wishes him harm. Not because she speaks ill of him. But because she doesn't speak of him at all. She no longer gives him the energy of her words. And that silence, it stings more than any confrontation ever could. He thought she'd wait. He thought there would be time. That one day, when he was ready, he could come back and she'd still be there. Soft, open, forgiving. But that's the thing about timing. It matters. And when you waste too much of it, even the most loving woman will outgrow the space you never filled. She's not the same woman anymore. She's become more aware of herself, more in tune with her peace, more connected to the life she deserves. Her love isn't gone. It's just reserved now. Held close for someone who won't need to be convinced to treasure it. And he'll always wonder what could have been. He'll replay moments, the things he didn't say, the times he brushed her off, the warnings he ignored, the love he received and didn't return. All of it will come back, Not to punish him, but to teach him. Because pain is a powerful teacher, especially when it's the result of your own choices. And maybe one day he will change. Maybe he'll grow. Maybe he'll become the man she once saw in him. But by then her story won't include him anymore. Her future will be filled with people who match her energy, who show up without being begged, who see her not as someone to fix them, but as someone to build with. And that's the real ending. Not the breakup, not the silence, but the becoming. She became everything he didn't appreciate. She became the healed version of herself, the glowing version, the woman who gives without losing, who loves with boundaries, who nurtures without shrinking. He was part of her story, but he's not her conclusion. She ends this chapter not with bitterness, but with freedom, with the softest kind of power, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, the kind that simply lives fully, joyfully, peacefully, on her own terms. And that's what he never saw coming. Not the pain of her leaving, but the strength of her never returning. Because once a good woman truly knows her worth, there is no going back. Not for him, not for the past, not for almost love, not for broken promises, not even for the memory of what could have been. She's moved on, she's grown, and she's gone.